Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Tony. Welcome to the Lido Loca podcast. Episode 14 of the podcast. We're taking a little bit of a different approach to today's episode. Today is an interview episode. We're going to be mixing those in. Today we're talking to Emma of Emma Cruises. She is a UK-based cruise content creator, and we had a great conversation. We spent some time talking about what's going on in the world of cruising, and we try to dig a little deeper and try to understand how what that cruise life is like for Emma. So thank you so much for stopping by. Just a couple little advertisements. Make sure you follow the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and then there's a video version of the podcast. You can actually see this conversation between Emma and I at the Lido Loca Cruise Podcast YouTube channel. I'll leave a link for that. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to keep us going in the time of isolation, consider joining our Patreon. Over on Patreon, you can get some extra content, some extra access to videos, extra live streams, and a robust community growing over there. I would point you to www.patreon.com/Lido Loca if you want to help out the podcast that way. But without much further ado, here is my conversation with Emma of Emma Cruises. I guess we'll set the stage here. So we find ourselves March the 30th, 2020. You are at home because you have to be. I am at home because I have to be. This is like the zombie apocalypse. I don't think we can start this conversation off without acknowledging the fact that the world is drastically different than it was 2 months ago. Cruising's drastically different. What is life like? Well, first of all, where are you at in the UK? What's the big city that you're near, and how has life been under the current crisis? What's changed for you, and how quickly has it changed?
Okay, so I'm down on the south coast. Brighton is probably my nearest city. You know, Brighton, it's got the classic British seaside and the pier and all of that, seagulls and stuff. For us here, we are under lockdown. The only reasons we're allowed to go out is for food and medicine, and we're allowed 1 hour of exercise per day. If you want to go for a run, you could do that one time per day. If you try and go out for your second run, in theory you're in trouble, but I'm sure it's fine. Pretty much everyone is working from home if they can. I can. So for me, I'm very, very lucky. My work has just moved to this desk. It's just moved to home. It's very, very strange, but I'm very grateful to have my job. I work in insurance by day, and insurance should be one of the industries that actually does okay from this, because we mostly deal in car insurance. People aren't going to cancel their car insurance, but they're not having car crashes because they're not outside. So I'm hoping that the car insurance industry will be fine.
That's interesting. So I wonder if people will be like, why do I have car insurance right now? Because I'm not driving my car anywhere. But yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit of a trade-off. So excellent that you're able to keep working now. So is a typical work day in the UK, is that an 8-hour gig? Do you get a lunch break? What's the cultural differences between here and there?
Oh, wow. So, I mean, for me, I work 9 to 5 and have an hour for lunch, which I think is about as good as you're going to get.
Yeah.
The main difference for us is, of course, our annual leave here. We get a lot more annual leave than you guys, and it's a lot more flexible. I have a lot of American friends, and they tell me they've got, 5 days off a year or 10, and blows my mind. I don't know how you guys do it.
You get, so how much vacation time do you get?
Yeah, so our legal minimum is about 4 weeks. So whatever you normally work, if you work full time, you get 4 weeks. If you work just 2 days a week, you'll get 4 times 2. But that's the absolute bare minimum. I have friends who get 30, 35 days off a year, plus the ability to do more flexible time on top of that.
35.
I get the bare minimum. Yeah, I get the bare minimum of 22, and we complain about that so much where I work. It's an outrage. And then I have these American friends. I used to work in Asda, which is the UK Walmart part. It's the same company. And I got this 4 weeks off per year, and I had friends who had to work for the first year without any time off, I think. And they just hated me because they were saying, it's the same company and you're getting time off and I'm having to work. And I felt really bad, but I don't know how you guys do it. You guys work so hard. Not saying we don't, but you Americans work so hard.
Do they limit how much of that time you can take consecutively? Could you take 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off in a row, or do they really try to just limit you to 1 week at a time?
2 weeks is completely fine. For me, I've had over 2 weeks at a time, but you just have to get more kind of senior approval that it's not going to mess up anything else. But 2 weeks is fine, pretty common. Everyone tends to have, a 2 week holiday and then maybe a week and then a few odd days. That's pretty standard for us.
Awesome. Cruising. I mean, you are a lifelong cruiser. I've heard you talk about it before, that you've been cruising since you were a wee baby. Give me a little bit of your cruising history. Like, is this something your parents got you into? How many cruises have you been on? And let's start there.
Okay, I hope you're ready for the answer to this question.
Yes.
To ask me what cruises I've been on is quite a question. So I took my first cruise when I was 11. It was my gran took me and my cousins and my aunties and my uncles on this big family cruise. My parents have said that they probably never would have thought about taking me on a cruise if it wasn't for that. My gran just said, someone distant in my family died, left us some money, and she said, I'm going to do a good trip with this, which was very, very nice. We did Alaska and Hawaii, and I'm very jealous of myself. I was 11 years old. It was so much fun when you're 11 because my parents would eat in the main restaurant and I could go to the buffet and get pizza, which when you're 11, it's just the best thing in the world. It was so much fun. So I cruised kind of, every other year, 2 or 3 years, mostly with Norwegian. I really liked the kind of relaxedness of cruising, and that's just how I thought cruising was because that's kind of all I had done. Then I took a Cunard cruise. I don't know how much you know about Cunard, but it is the exact opposite of a Norwegian cruise line cruise. And I sat there and I thought, this is what people think cruising is like, and this is not what cruising is like. And I need to tell people, because if they think this is what cruising is, I mean, it is on Cunard, but most cruise lines are not like that. It was dress codes ship wide after 6 p.m, table sharing, string quartets. We went to the theatre and there was a show and it was about like the progression of music, and it went from kind of the 1950s and it stopped at ABBA. That was the last song, and I was thinking, they genuinely think nothing has happened in music since ABBA. So I sat down and I started my website when I was on that cruise because I thought I was not ready for this at all. And since then I've cruised.
How many cruises total?
About 29 I'm on now. 29 cruises.
And you
that's
started at 11.
Year.
You started at 11, and how old are you now?
I'm 26 now. So
wow, very nice.
Yeah, and I mean it has exponentially increased. So I kind of did one every couple of years, and then last year I did 10. And I had a good year planned for this year. I'm not going to beat 10 though, I don't think.
I don't think, this is not going to be a 10 cruise year, but that's exciting. Like, so you started cruising early. You'll really be able to experience a lot of cruising over your lifetime, which is super exciting. What do you like most about cruising? Like, for me, I like entertainment, I like gambling, and I like food. Like, those are, if I was going to surmise what my cruising experience is, it's like, give me free entertainment, give me a place to gamble, and then give me, good food. So what are your major things that you like when you go cruising?
Okay, so apart from the gambling part, I'm not a big gambler. The food, absolutely the food. I just think whatever your ideal evening is on land, you can do it on a cruise while being transported to different places. And that kind of just, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, most people's ideal evening might be see some live music or go to the theatre. It all involves food. You might go for a swim. I can't really think of many things that you could do on land that you couldn't do on a cruise that weren't included in the price. For me, it is the value for money is a massive part of it. I like to pay a price, and then that's the price. I don't like all of these extras being added on. And for me, being in Europe, I can do a Mediterranean cruise that visits 5 countries. if I was to try and do that on land, it will be so expensive and just impossible. So I think cruising makes traveling really, really easy, and it's got everything I would want to do there included. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me.
Have you cruised the Caribbean before? Have you come to the States and gone to the Caribbean?
Yeah, so I've done a couple of, what I would say, Caribbean cruises. That's how we say it here. And Alaska and Hawaii. I have done quite a lot of land-based trips to America too. I do have some American family, so I'm quite used to the differences between American and British life. And like you say, for me here, if I get on a plane for an hour, I've got about 4 different countries I can get to, which is just not even including... I could go to the Netherlands and France and Scotland. There's so many different things you can do just cruising from the UK. You could do Norway, which I think is quite similar to Alaska. It's like our version of an Alaska cruise. You could do a Baltic cruise to Russia, where it's all about the history and the culture and the walking tours and that kind of thing. We can go to the Mediterranean really, really easy, which is our Caribbean, I suppose, our chance to get some beaches and some sunshine. You can do Canary Islands, you can cruise across to America. There's so many things we can do from here, and I'm so glad that I am here. I do really like Caribbean cruises, but the thing I don't like is that it requires more money. I'm quite used to getting off and just doing my own thing in a port, using a local train, going to see something I want to see. And when you're in the Caribbean, it's kind of, we've made these things for you to do, which are great, but you have to pay to do all of them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, so since you have that experience with both cruising from the United States, cruising from Europe, what do you see are the biggest differences? What would be shocking to an American who goes cruising from Europe for the first time? And then maybe what was something that shocked you the first time you started making the trip over to the United States?
Okay, so the first thing is obviously the people on the cruises. I love cruising with Americans and I love cruising with British people, but it's very, very different. I remember when I took a Caribbean cruise with Norwegian, and we were sat in the theatre and they said, you know, if you're from America, then woo, and if you're from the UK, then clap or something. And it was the quietest noise for the people from the UK. And I thought, you know, maybe there'll be about 3 on here. And I got chatting to someone who worked for the cruise line, and they said something like, oh no, there's about 500 of you on here. I was like, you'll never find us. We kind of, I don't want to say we're not as, not friendly, but like we don't interact with each other as much, I don't think, when we cruise. I think for me, I don't really like the kind of table sharing, and I tend to go on a cruise to spend time with the people that I went on the cruise with. Whereas it feels like to me, if you, maybe not all Americans are like this, but you're nice to anyone when they sit next to you at a bar, and you all seem to just be friends with each other. I'm not sure if that's true.
I'll speak to
but it feels like it to me.
Yeah, I'll interrupt real quick and speak to that. I think there is something, and depending on what part of the country you're from, you are kind of trained that, like we have this saying here that people are voice activated, and so we reciprocate that. So, like if you sat down next to me and said, "Hey, how you doing?" I would say it would like that's my voice activation. I would be like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be nice to you because you spoke to me." I'm not really wired like that. I don't like table sharing either. I don't like to talk to strangers, and I'm not very. I don't think I'm unfriendly, but if I don't know you, I have trouble making a connection that way. But yeah, I do think we're kind of trained for that. Like, you know, if somebody talks to you, you should say, "How you doing?" There's places in the country that you go that that's really strange to them. Like you say, "How's it going?" They look at you like, "Why are you talking to me?" So it's not true completely across the country, but definitely in the southern parts of the country, there is there's a willingness to interact with people that it's hard. If you're a little introverted, you're like, "Oh, I don't, you know, I really have to go out of my shell to do this." And I'm completely the same way. I don't want to have to struggle through my meal trying to come up with an interesting conversation. I would almost rather eat by myself than share a table with a stranger. So it's kind of interesting that way.
Yeah, it's things like if I go on a Royal Caribbean cruise and you go to Johnny Rockets or somewhere, and we're not used to that level of friendliness from the staff. I know that sounds really, really strange, but we here in Europe get a lot of complaints from Americans who say that the staff are really grumpy or they're not friendly because they just bring you your food, they ask you what you want, and they go away. And for me, that's fine. I don't really like all of this kind of dancing and stuff.
This is like, okay, let's have this conversation. We'll digress a little bit.
Okay, let's.
I have to get your opinion on some things that are super important to me. I'm not saying that the balance of our friendship hangs on the answers to these questions. I'm not saying that. The cool thing about being a polite American is I will just judge you silently. So, okay, so first of all, we've established that you don't like sharing the table. What do you think about, have you had this experience where, particularly on Carnival cruises, where they do showtime, where they interrupt your meal to come out and dance and sing and everybody twirls their napkins around? Have you had this experience, and are you for it or are you against it?
Not really, but it doesn't really sound like a thing I would like.
Seen it?
They did it on my Costa cruise, to be fair. On the Costa cruise, the whole restaurant would turn into this Italian music and the waiters would dance down and they'd try and get you up to dance with them, and I'd be there like, nope.
Okay, good. I don't like this thing because this is the way I feel about it. I feel that I like the fact when the wait staff just does what they're supposed to do and then leaves me alone. Like I'm okay with that. Like I don't see that as bad customer service. So yeah, on like Carnival, they have this thing called Showtime. Like there's a big announcement, it's showtime. And all these poor waiters and all the poor service staff, they have to come out, they put on like outfits, and then they dance, and then they sing songs, and then everybody in the audience twirls their food napkin around and throws food everywhere. It's like, I just want my dessert. Okay, good. I think I could convert you to be anti that, which sounds like you might already be. So I'm good with that.
Yeah, it sounds like we're on the same thing. For me, I feel like I've paid to be entertained, and they should entertain me, not make me the entertainment.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
And I want to see my entertainment in the main theater. I don't need it at the dinner. I don't know. Also,
I agree.
Where do you stand on towel animals? Is this something that you have to have on your cruise or not have on your cruise?
I couldn't care less. I mean, it's nice for a few seconds when you think, oh, that's nice, but then it's a towel. Like, good. Some people really care about it, don't they?
Can continue because
that's good. I passed.
I would rather have chocolate. Honestly, I've been on a couple cruise lines.
Yes.
In lieu of the towel animal, they give you some sweets before you go to sleep, which that's what you want. You wanted just a big dose of sugar right before you try to go into slumber. But I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I would pick that too. That sounds good.
I think the first time that I heard your name is in the context of the phrase "cruising isn't just for old people." Is that the correct phrasing?
Yeah, so that is my website name.
At that? Would you tell your friends, your other youthful friends, that you love to go cruising, and they would make faces at you and say, "Well, isn't that just for old people?" Is that the genesis of that, or how did that come about?
Yeah, pretty much. So it was when I was on this Cunard cruise, and the passengers on Cunard cruises, I have to say, are much, much, much older than some other cruises, just because that's what Cunard is, and that's fine. I sat there and I said to my brother, I'm going to start a website, and he said, what are you going to call it? And I was just joking. I said, cruising isn't just for oldpeople.com. I started it, and it's been 3 years. It's too late. But it does sum up what I'm trying to say. That there are cruise lines for everybody, and all we need to do is match the right person to the right cruise line. There's nothing more annoying than someone that says, oh, I've been on a cruise and I hated it. I cruised with Cunard and I hate dressing up and I hate formal dining. And I'm just thinking, why didn't you cruise with Norwegian or Carnival or Royal Caribbean or anything else? It's just nothing more annoying than just people who they completely don't do their research, do one cruise and say cruising isn't for me, because cruising is such a big thing.
I agree. I mean, we've run into a lot of people, first-time cruisers, and choosing the right cruise line is a big deal. I think the challenge, at least over here, is a lot of people are very price conscious, and so whoever has the lowest price tends to win the day. And sometimes that can be a decision that really turns people on or really turns people off. What do you do now? So when you're out there, kind of trying to convert people into cruisers, kind of what's your pitch? Is that it? Do you say, hey, look, there's what, like if you run into somebody young that says, oh, I feel like cruising is just for older people, how do you tell them to go about cruising for the first time?
A lot of it does come down to the dress codes and the fixed dining thing. I think it's quite different for us here versus you guys in America with your Caribbean cruises, which generally have a younger passenger demographic anyway. If you were to do a Baltic cruise here, the passengers are a bit older. So I think people still think here, at least, that you have to table share, you have to dress up for dinner, it's going to be all ball gowns and Titanic and that kind of thing. And once I say to people, you know, what do you want to do with your evening? Like, what is your dream eating? Is that it? Is it drinking? And there's cruise lines with unlimited drinks on board. And my friends are like, I had no idea. They're not even that expensive sometimes.
So is there a lot of choice though? Like if somebody says like, I don't want to go cruising with the dress codes, with the shared table,
yes.
I mean, you have a lot of options there, right? Would you say there's more casual cruising there or more formal cruising options in Europe?
I think a bit of both. So we've got obviously the P&O cruises, the Cunard cruises, the really British cruises, which tend to be a bit more traditional. We've got loads of small cruise lines over here, ones you probably would never even think of, which can be quite good options sometimes. And then we have things like Costa Cruises, the Italian cruise line, MSC are here a lot, and they're really quite casual. So if I'm speaking to someone who wants a budget cruise and kind of wants to experience different places, I do recommend MSC quite a lot, just because I think for the value for money on an MSC cruise can be really, really good. And it makes me feel like I'm actually abroad when I'm on an MSC cruise. A lot of the times you can go to the Mediterranean, be with everyone who's also from Britain or America. And it just, I don't know, I don't really like that. I quite like it when people are speaking different languages and you can try different food and stuff. So
that's super interesting because one of my favorite things, I've been on 2 MSC cruises. That is actually one of my favorite things about MSC cruising is the diversity on that cruise ship. I love the fact that you're there with people from other countries because we draw a lot of Europeans, even, you know, for Caribbean cruises on MSC. They're committed to that diversity and the food's pretty good for me. Like I like a lot of Americans complain that there's not 18,000 selections on the buffet, but I'm like, well, what do you need? Like, how, you know, are you going to put 20 things on the plate? Like, just there's 4 good things or 12 good things. What difference does it make? But it's interesting with them.
Yeah, and you can always just have as much as you want. Some people say that the MSC portions are too small, but you can just order as much as you like. So I don't really understand that. And I quite like trying, I suppose it's more Mediterranean food, more pasta, more vegetables. If anything, it's probably what you're supposed to eat as opposed to what you normally eat at home. That's just junk.
Well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the UK's feeling about good bread is, but man, MSC pasta, bread, pizza, it's all top notch. It's very good.
Yeah, bread is very important to me when I cruise. I eat a lot of bread.
So
that's one of the hardest things about now. No bread.
Yeah, so are you having trouble getting like staples like bread and milk and those kind of things?
Not so much. I think our really, really big shops, everyone's kind of gone there and taken everything. If you want something, just go to a smaller shop and then it's fine. Luckily, there's maybe 4 shops I could walk to from here, and we're all wandering around. So if I desperately need bread, I can get some bread. I can't believe how expensive bread is where you are.
Like a loaf of bread you can get for $2. Like how much is bread for you guys?
So if I want a loaf of bread for like toast, 50p to £1.
Really? That's like a good name brand bread or just the generic bread? I
would say £1 is the good name and 50p is the supermarket one. But it's all bread for 50p. You can't really argue with it.
That's kind of like, so like if you go to Walmart and buy the Walmart brand bread, you can usually get that for $1. You can get that for $1.
Your bread is so strange. I'm sorry. I've spent too much time in America.
Pay up a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know what you do to your bread, but it's just odd.
Does it taste weird? Too flat? What's the...
Yeah. Sugary. You put more sugar in your bread, or I don't know. It tastes like, here we have ice buns, which is like a bread with icing sugar on it. It's one of my favorite things. It's It's so nice. And all of your bread tastes like that.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. And I noticed that too. Like, even if you think about the MSC cruises, the desserts there are not super sweet. So I do believe that that's a difference in the palate, in I guess the cultures. Everything that's sweet here is super sweet. And then I would say things that are sweet in Europe would seem less sweet to me from my experience.
I think so too.
Let's think about this. So cruising isn't just for old people. This is the blog that you've written. How long you've had it for? How many years? Did you say
3 years now? Yeah.
3
so I started that originally, and then I started YouTube about 2 years ago, just because some things were easier to show than write. And
your YouTube channel is Emma Cruises, correct?
It is Emma Cruises, because cruising isn't just for old people. It's way too long.
That would be a heck of a YouTube name. So your blog, you post daily on that. Do you have a daily readership there? Are a lot of people checking it out?
It's strange because on my website, it's people who don't really know me who go on there. I have to say, at the moment, my website traffic is down 95% today, which is so heartbreaking because no one is searching for anything about cruises.
Right.
I'm so glad that I split and I did a website and a YouTube channel, because people they're at home watching YouTube, but no one is Googling, what is the dress code on this river cruise?
Right.
So it's really, really heartbreaking me. I'm not looking at it anymore.
So do you feel like, and I've seen this too, do you feel like that YouTube is a little more personality driven than information driven, I guess, or content driven?
Yeah, so much. I think with a website, you're kind of a commodity. You're there to answer the question. If you answer it best, you'll be number one on Google. If you don't, you won't. And it's very transactional. Whereas YouTube, I think it's showing now because I can't go on cruises. I can't do anything, but people are still watching my videos because they care about my opinion on things, which, I mean, people watch your videos because they care about your opinions on things. And that just wouldn't work if no one knew you and liked you. And that's what's good about YouTube. You can get to know people. I mean, I feel like I know you so well. The thing that is a bit weird is I'm going to have to admit something, okay? You put out so much content and I want to watch it all, but I don't have so much time. So what I do is I watch not just yours, but everyone's YouTube videos at 2 times speed.
Yes.
So when I watch you now, I'm like, he is being very slow.
Yeah, so I have a much lower voice than 2 times speed, I would assume.
Yeah, but 2 times speed, you can still
there's a lot. So it's an interesting thing. So to me, so the idea of writing every day, I feel like, is that content easier to create and to publish than publishing a video? That would make sense, right?
Yeah, sometimes. It's hard because on YouTube, so say if I write a blog post about something that I think is fantastic and I've spent ages on it and it's great and it's going to be useful to people, YouTube doesn't care unless it has some sort of hook or something interesting about it. So you have, even if, sometimes I sort of take the same content because I've done all the research for it, I know everything, but you'll have to pick out one thing that's shocking about it and then put that all over YouTube, because you have to grab people's attention on YouTube because they're not already looking for the information. On the internet, just generally writing, people are only there because they want to know the answer, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting observation. So, of course, YouTube, a huge search engine, but I completely get what you're saying. There's so much competition for the click, right? That's something, The interesting thing about writing a blog post is that you can write very good searchable information that may resonate for long periods of time. Like, you can put a piece of content on your blog that will get read over and over and over again. But what I do feel about YouTube is that so much of it is immediate. Like, you can make content that's searchable, and some of that content will live forever. But what I've noticed in my journey is that you got to win the day. And so that exactly what you're talking about. You have to talk about something that somebody wants to watch that day. And it's an interesting dance because I would say for us, 45% of the people that watch our videos are subscribers and 55% are complete strangers.
That's really good.
Yeah. And so it's, and that's grown over time. I mean, we used to be like only 30% subscribers. And so it's an interesting dance because you're trying to make content that your subscribers would like to see. But then at the same time, you have, numbers wise, there are more people that don't watch your content than do watch your content. So how do you I feel like YouTube's a personality driven thing. So how do I present just in a picture and a title, like, hey, you want to come get to know me? That's a hard sell sometimes, and it's interesting to me that way. Now, do you find that so YouTube is personality driven, and now people begin to know you virtually, how weird is that? Like, I don't know if weird's the right word, but how have you adjusted to all of a sudden being known virtually by a lot of strangers? Anything weird there, or any good takeaways there?
I mean, it's strange that people want my opinion on things. I didn't think I'll ever get used to that. It's so nice to come on and do, say, a live video, and you see all these names that you recognize, and you know, oh, it's the lady who took this cruise, or the man that's just booked Costa, blah 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 blah, and that is so nice, especially at times like now, to know that you've got these people who've got your back and genuinely want you to do well. There's so many nice people out there, and it's so nice to get to know them. But it is really, really weird, because when you're on video, it's so easy for other people to know you. Once you've seen someone on video, you know exactly what they look like. I go to a lot of events here in the UK, like new ship launches and things like that, and someone who is a journalist or something on Twitter will come up to me because they recognize me, and I look exactly the same in real life, and I'm trying to work out who they are from a picture on Twitter that's like taken at this angle with like a bunny filter on it or something. So that's always really strange, and I think I really overcompensate because I never want to appear rude to anybody ever. I always want to be like, oh my gosh, hi, it's so nice to see you, and it takes a bit of getting used to. I've been out in places like in Turkey, and someone came up to me, and my first thought is like, I could get robbed or something. Like, it never crosses my mind that someone actually wants to talk to me. But it is really nice. I mean, your community is one of the most. They love you so much.
We're very fortunate that way. That's the thing. Again, as somebody, to me, it's easy to look at a camera and talk to it as if I'm talking to people, but essentially it's still a solitary creative outlet, right? And so when it transitions from just that virtual, somebody whose little picture I've seen on Facebook, like it's only this big, that's the only way that I know them, but they've listened to me talk for a period, like hours, like they've seen things that I've done in my life, and then when you talk to them, it's like, I'm completely with you, like it's overwhelmingly, and I'm very grateful that I would be noticed in that way. And so I want the people to feel as special as I feel when somebody recognizes me. But
it's kind of, for me, it's got to the point, I've watched so many of your videos that when you message me, I can read it in your voice in my head.
Oh, that's
because I've got so many hours.
Well, and then the other thing, for good or bad, is I do try to use things that connect people to me. So like if people hear me say hey, I think people know that, or if it's see on the Lido, I think people know that. And so it wasn't necessarily by design, but you do find that you have these connection points with people.
Picked up things about me that I never planned for. So I took a picture next to a llama on a Mariner cruise, and now I'm like a llama lady. I eat a lot of cookies on my cruises, and now I'm a cookie lady. And these things just happen. And then people, I think, really like this kind of like inside jokes, and I really like it too. So some things I said about the Scarlet Lady ship, I'll get a lot of hashtags now about storage and things. It's quite nice.
That's a good segue. So I've been, I want to talk about it. I don't know. Scarlet Lady. So cruising isn't just for old people. The big, like the sky's open. So taking that idea, cruising isn't just for old people. How do we address that issues? The sky's open. The angelic looking Richard Branson with a much better beard and longer hair than he said, I've got an answer for the youth. I'm going to make the Scarlet Lady. And then Scarlet Lady launched, and our friend Emma here, Cruising Isn't Just for Old People, she went on the Scarlet Lady and she loved it. Wait, you love it. So
for the first time ever, was lost for words.
You went on the Scarlet Lady, unlike any experience you had before, and you didn't come away a super big fan. Now that you've had even more time to contemplate it, to think about it, do you still feel like it's not for you? Were you too hard? Let's give you the opportunity here. Like, I know that there were people that went on that ship that loved it, others that didn't like it. Does your opinion still hold? Everything still stay the same? Do you feel like you were too hard? Where are you at now? What's it been, 2 months? Has it been 2 months since you took the cruise?
It's been ages. The ship's just been doing nothing since, because she can't.
You shut it down?
She can't go anywhere. Yeah. I was pretty much the last person on there. I think I still agree with everything I said on there. A lot of people have said to me, you know, I was only on there for 2 days. How can I get an idea of the cruise? And nothing that I said was about the actual cruise. I just pointed out physical things on the ship, such as there is no storage, which is a fact. Those things remain true. I published this video, and then Virgin didn't like it, and then lots of people didn't like it, and I never watch my videos back because I find it really, really odd. I don't want to look at myself. But I watched this one back later, and I was thinking, I said a lot of good things in that video. I made sure I had a script, and I had a good thing for every bad thing that I said. But no one pays attention to any of those good things I said. I mean, it's a good idea. I liked the idea of the ship, and I liked the idea of the cruise line. I just think it was poorly executed, and they kind of, it felt to me like they had an electrical problem and they got a plumber to fix it. They just hired people who didn't know how cruises work, which they did on purpose, and they promoted this as if it was a good thing. We've hired people who've never been on a cruise before, and I think that was just a mistake. You just needed someone to go around with a bit of common sense and think, all right, I'm going to sit here, I've got a drink, there's nowhere to put it. Just little things like that, which they can fix. If they can right now, they've got time, order 4,000 bedside tables, they'll fix it a lot. I'm just not sure at all, for the first time ever.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, the interesting thing is I would be shocked that if any company, the first time they did something, hit the mark completely. So the idea, the thing that was funny to me was the pushback that you got on it. I would be thankful as a company for somebody to give me an honest opinion, because consumers will vote with their money, right? So if you bring a lot of people on and everybody says it's beautiful and the best experience ever, and then people actually spend money, get on the cruise ship, and that's not true, they will not book with that cruise line again. So for me, and it's hard when you're somebody that makes these videos and you put yourself out in the public space, but honesty is going to win the day. Like, at the end of the day, you were very honest about your opinion, and I think people will understand and respect that, and they'll listen to you again. And I would hope that Virgin would listen to you.
I mean, newspapers and travel agents can't say the same things as I can say because they want to work with Virgin, so they will say things that are like, by not saying that they like things, that's as much as they can say that they don't like things. So they'll say, you know, this cabin has enough storage for a 2 or 3 night cruise, and they'll leave it there. Whereas the sister ship Valiant Lady is supposed to be doing 7 night Mediterranean cruises. I just don't see how that's going to work. For me, I came out of this trip and I phoned my mum when I was waiting for a train, and she said, "You sound so disappointed. Who would you recommend it to?" And I said, "I have no idea. If it was the same price as Norwegian or Royal Caribbean, I would say fair enough. It's just a quirky alternative that's a bit odd, but some people will love it." For me, it's just the price they're charging of a really luxurious cruise line to not even have a bedside table or a place you can charge on one side. Just little things like that would really, really annoy me if I'd paid the price that Virgin are asking.
Yeah, it makes sense. So would you cruise it again? Would you pay to cruise it? Like, are you curious to see if they, like, if all of a sudden you heard they fixed it, would you go on again if they gave it to you, though?
A lot of this comes down to what we were talking about earlier, though, with the kind of interactive entertainment. Virgin are all about that. So I don't know if it actually would be for me anyway. It felt like, I mean, I'm 26 and I'm on Instagram and stuff, but I felt very, very uncool with all of these proper Instagram influencers and people that had been paid to be there. it's going to be interesting to see who the cruise line actually get on board versus who they think they're going to attract, because I just don't know who is my age who has that much money.
Right.
It's expensive. You can almost cruise with Viking for the same price. And I've cruised with Viking, and my goodness, if I had the money, that's where I'd be for sure.
So
1,000 times.
You've been on Viking Ocean before?
Yeah, I did 5 nights. We did a Norwegian cruise up to Hunt for the Midnight Sun, because they have continual midnight in summer. And those 5 days have ruined just everything since. It was... it's not even comparable to anything else that I've done since, or probably will ever do again. That ship was just amazing. I could drink from the mini bar. Even food, like the poolside grill, was better than you'd find in any restaurant on land. It was just... Whew.
Viking Ocean consistently at the top of list of what's really good cruising right now. I think that's something I would like to try. Now I know that you've had the opportunity to do river cruises. How different is a river cruise than an ocean cruise? And are ocean cruisers likely to enjoy river cruising, or is it a whole different kind of experience?
Before I went, I thought there would be a crossover between ocean and river cruising. And there is pretty much none. It's like, out of the 100 people that were on the river cruise I took, I probably found about 5 that had been on ocean cruises, which really, really, I don't know, just took me by surprise. It's completely different. The fact that they're both cruising, that's about the only thing that combines them. I suppose if you were on a really, really small ocean ship, you could kind of compare it to a river cruise. But the thing about river cruising is, as I say, about maybe 100 passengers. You have one lounge, one restaurant, you dock right in town, you wander off, you've normally got included excursions and included drinks. There's nothing really that is the same as an ocean cruise and a river cruise. The ships are different. The actual thing is different. I mean, I think most ocean cruisers would probably like a river cruise, but they would have to not expect it to be like an ocean cruise, because it's not.
Which would you pick if you were choosing?
Ooh, I really liked the river cruise, to be honest with you. The only thing is that river cruises are quite a bit more expensive than ocean cruises, but that's because there's so much included in it compared to an ocean cruise, and you've only got about 100 other people on there. So I do both, please.
So Emma, just recently you helped organize a 12-hour live stream for fellow YouTube creators Sean and Steph. It was hugely successful. It raised a lot of money. A lot of people know what's going on with Sean and Steph, but if folks don't know, Sean was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He is currently in a treatment program where he's trying to get better. Have you talked to them lately? Any updates? Do you know what's going on with them? How are they doing?
Yeah, so Sean started his chemo this week. Chemo is never nice for anybody, but he is positive and he's so determined to fight this. And if anyone in the world can fight this, it is Sean. The amount that they love each other is just, I've never seen anything quite like it before. It feels like we're all in on that. Yeah, they're doing okay. Obviously, this isn't an ideal time to be getting cancer treatment. That's really not ideal. But they have so many friends all over the world. People are sending them things, and I sent them some just candy sweets for them, just because I was thinking, you know, what do you send someone who's unwell? If it was me, I would just want to be eating sweets. So I just sent them things like that. But they're doing as well as they can be, considering the situation. He's got chemo a few times a week, and he's holding up okay.
Well, we continue to send our thoughts and our prayers out to them. It's definitely a challenging time, and as you mentioned, it's a challenging time with everything else that's going on. Let's do a few rapid fire questions. I'll see if I can come up with something off the top of my head about cruising. Cruise director. Do you care about the cruise director or not care about the cruise director?
Couldn't care less.
Favorite kind of room? Cabin.
It would. I'm normally always in a guaranteed inside. Depends if that's my favorite. If I had more money, it would be a balcony.
Balcony would be the favorite, but Okay, that's a fair.
Guaranteed inside cabin.
Quantity over quality. You would take 3 interiors over 1 balcony.
Yeah, 100 times over. I will. If I could cruise without a cabin at all, probably would.
Do you get up early or sleep in late on a cruise?
Sleep in late, just generally.
Main dining room or buffet? Which do you prefer?
50-50. I like to try everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll probably split between both.
Let's see. What's your favorite kind of show on a cruise?
I like the big theatre shows. I like the Priscilla Queen of the Deserts and the Kinky Boots and the Broadway style musicals.
Favorite cruise line?
Oh, I have probably. Can I have 3?
Sure.
Yeah, well, Norwegian Cruise Line, because I've always cruised with Norwegian, and the food's great, and it's just fun. And Princess, I think, would be in there as well, because I really, really like Princess, for a more kind of relaxed cruise. And then my third favourite is the British Cruise Line Marella at the moment.
Marella.
Yeah, you probably don't know that much about them, but they've got some of the old Royal Caribbean cruise ships. They're pretty reasonably priced, and they include drinks in that price, so it makes it really, really good value. And the only thing is that the ships are kind of smaller and older. It's all quite British on board, but it's just good fun, and for the value, it's really, really good. I probably would put MSC in my top 5 as well, and Viking, and you know.
How do you feel about staying connected when you're on the cruise ship? Do you like to disconnect, or do you like to still do social media and those kind of things?
If it was not for this, all of my cruise stuff before this, I loved being disconnected. I would never buy an internet package. It's nice to not be able to be emailed, or you know, I don't have kids, I don't have anyone I need to check in on, so it's quite nice just to be free. Now, though, I'm updating my Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and stuff, which is good. Sometimes it does get a bit much, and I need to remind myself, you know, you're actually here now. Like, stop updating stuff and go and do stuff. You can update it later.
Cruising, does it feel like vacation? Does it feel like holiday, or does it feel like work?
It depends on the trip. If it's a proper full-length cruise and I'm with people, my family or something, it feels like a vacation. I'm very, very lucky. I do get to do a lot of, you know, preview events or short trips with journalists and stuff, and that feels more like work, because, you know, it's not something I would be able to do myself. And sometimes I go on these trips by myself, which is really, really nice, but it's very different from cruising with family or friends, and I have to do things by certain dates, and, you know, you need to keep it going.
Keep it going. Absolutely. What's your favorite cruise ship that you've been on?
My favorite is the Norwegian Spirit, the one little old cruise ship for Norwegian, who they have just refurbished, and I really wanted to get on board her, but I think that's going to be delayed now. But I love that cruise ship. She was built for the Asian market, so she has this massive atrium in the middle, which is really, really nice. This big restaurant with like glass windows at the back, and it's just, a lot of the newer, bigger cruise ships feel like they've got stuff that costs extra, just kind of crammed in every single corner, whereas this one's just really spacious, feels really luxurious, and I like Norwegian, so that's my favorite, I think. But then, I also really like the sort of MSC Meraviglia, the new MSC ships. I really like those, and I like kind of like Norwegian Getaway, Norwegian Breakaway as well, I think.
What's a cruise ship that you haven't been on that you would love to go on?
I need to go on one of the big Royal Caribbean cruise ships for sure. I've only cruised on Independence of the Seas, which is not one of these mega ships. So I need to go on Symphony or something, I think. I think we all deserve like a bucket list cruise after this. Absolutely. Because life's too short, I think. If anything, it's making me want to cruise more.
That's I'm the same way. So we've gone longer than what we currently have without a cruise, but somehow knowing that we can't cruise right now makes it seem worse. Like, you know, it's like, oh, I've waited longer than this before, but now I feel the pain of it. What's your favorite cruise port to go out of?
I quite like flying to somewhere like Barcelona or Genoa in Italy, because it's so different, but it only takes about 2 hours on a plane, and then you're completely, you know, you're in the sun, which is very different from us in the UK. So I think probably, obviously it's easier if I go from the UK, but you know, it rains and...
That leads to a good question. Somebody who's never been to the UK, what's a city that one should visit to get the vibe of the UK? Is it possible?
I think you should come down to Brighton and do the British seaside. Of course, London is fantastic, but it's very, very busy. And London's one of those places where it's very alive in the day and then everyone goes home. Like, people leave. Yeah. Whereas Brighton is where people actually live, and you can get donuts on the pier and you can eat fish and chips. And it's just really nice. So that's where I bring Americans to. That's where I brought Sean and Steph to when they came to England. And they thought everything about it was just the cutest thing that they've ever seen.
That's awesome. I guess the last little thing to talk about. What do you think the future of cruising is? It's a very challenging time for cruising. Who knows when cruising's going to start again? Do you see people getting turned off to cruising? Do you think cruising's going to have a hard time? It was one of the fastest growing industries before this happened. So what do you think is going to happen? So, I mean, the rate at which the cruise industry has been growing is just unlike anything in the world. We had 30 million passengers last year, which is just madness. I think this will probably slow down that growth. I mean, people can't cruise this year, but I don't think we're going to see the ultimate decline of the cruise industry. People have very, very short memories, and at the moment, everything is falling apart. It's not just the cruise industry that's falling apart. The thing that's damaging is all of these news stories when you see, you know, death ship and infected people, you know, trapped on cruise ship, which some things probably could have been handled a lot better. There's a lot of things going on at the moment that need still to be sorted out. But to be honest, I don't think it's going to stop the cruise growth. I do worry about some of the smaller cruise lines. I think cruise lines like Norwegian and Carnival, they'll be just fine. But it's smaller cruise lines, especially we've got a lot of little British cruise lines. There's small cruise lines. I went on a really small cruise line in Greece, and I worry about cruise lines like that because we really don't want to lose them, or we just end up with these same, you know, big British and American cruise lines. I think everyone is going to take a while to recover from this, not just because they don't want to go on cruises, but a lot of people have lost their jobs or they've had their wages cut, and the last thing you're thinking about is booking a cruise. I think it's hard to say, isn't it? I think it's going to be a good 6 months before anyone is cruising again, and then we'll see where we are this time next year. The cruise industry isn't dead. I hate people who say, you know, this is the end. It's not. It will slow things down probably, but there's so many of us that will cruise, so many of us. And the prices should come down. I'm with you. I believe that the industry is strong, and I don't think this will dissuade. I mean, look, if people should have been dissuaded from cruising, it should have been 2 weeks ago, and people were still just piling on cruise ships in the face of everything that was going on. So, it's an interesting phenomena. But yeah, I mean, some other news story will come up in the future, and it will take the spotlight off of, you know, like you said, the negative headlines. And so I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Well, Emma, thank you so much for spending your time with me. I'm completely fascinated by things I don't know, and I don't know what it's like to live in the UK at all. And the cool thing is, if you do want to know what it's like to live in the UK, especially during lockdown, you have an Instagram account that you update fairly actively. What's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram is just called Emma Cruises, and I think I'm updating that at least once an hour at the moment because I've got plenty of time. So if you want to see what us in Britain are eating and where we're going for walks, and if it was snowing yesterday, so interesting things are happening here. It doesn't snow in the UK. It snowed yesterday.
Wow. And then, of course, to see you in all of your glory, Emma Cruises on YouTube. Now, I'll leave links for all of the stuff and descriptions and show notes and all that stuff. How often do you put up a video? Do you have a regular schedule? What can people expect going over there? What's the normal cadence?
My regular schedule is on Sundays, a new video. But lately I have more time, so we can normally expect about 2 videos a week from me, but at least one on a Sunday. It normally tends to be things like cruise tips, cruise vlogs, cruise ship tours, cruise cabin tours, my thoughts on what's happening in the cruise world right now. I'm trying to do kind of more light-hearted things at the moment. We've just started up a virtual trivia, which will be on Fridays, just if people are missing cruise ship trivia. And going forward, I think we're just going to try and keep things light until I get back on a cruise ship, and then we can do a new cruise ship tour, which will be so good. I'm going to love it, no matter what it is, I think.
Well, very awesome. Thank you so much for talking to me. It was really great to get to talk to you. We do interact a lot, but this is probably the most we've ever talked at once. So I really do appreciate getting to know you, and thanks for the time.
Thank you. This has been so much fun. I feel like I know you so well anyway, but it's nice to get everyone else in on this.
That was pretty fun. Wasn't sure how that was going to work out, but a really a fun time having a chance to talk to Emma. So much in this isolation, you can just end up being by yourself, and it's really cool that technology allows you to reach out and have a conversation with somebody halfway across the world. And so I hope you enjoyed the episode. Love to hear your feedback. Send me some feedback, Tony@lidoloca.com. Do you like this interview? Do you have ideas for the show? We'd love to keep making the things that you want to see and hear. So drop me a line, and if you got questions, we'd love to answer those questions. If you get a chance, maybe give us a review on one of the podcast platforms like iTunes, and tell a friend. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Tony with the Lido Loca podcast, and until the next episode, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.